And it's particularly precious, I believe, because two other days came before. And so that makes this day very unique. It means there's already 2 days of bringing very strong intentions around the practice. So maybe if you're evaluating yourself, like strong, not so strong, coming and going. But this third day here, we can maybe bring more of a clear intention to use this time to cultivate wisdom through mindfulness and the instructions that we're receiving. And so I'd like to take a few minutes this morning to talk about practice, or one aspect of practice. And I was reflecting this morning when I woke up, reflecting on what could be good to bring here. There's so many ways to talk about the Dharma, or so many angles to come at it, so many ways to develop wisdom. And what was coming to mind or heart this morning was the teachings around the two realities. And Joseph was talking about this yesterday. The three of us, actually, I believe, have been kind of touching on this in the last 2 days. More specifically, Joseph, in an exchange yesterday in the Q&A, was mentioning the empty nature of thoughts, but also, so that would be the absolute reality. Absolute reality, thoughts are empty. They're events, phenomena happening that don't last, are conditional, are not so much me or mine, but maybe the product of culture, circumstances, moods in the mind at the moment. So in a way, they're empty of an inherent self in the midst of them, an essential, inherent self. They're constructed, ephemeral events. So he was saying, thoughts, are empty. So that's absolute reality. And he was saying, and yet, some are helpful and some are not helpful. So that's more on a conventional reality level, you could say. And if I think of Roxanne's teaching, and I really appreciate the way that Roxanne is bringing the practices of the heart to us this weekend, if I can call it like this retreat. And the way I see her move very skillfully and is moving from the relative side of reality. So sending wishes of well-being to ourselves and others, to beings, offering compassion to ourselves and others. And she moves like this from the kind of personal and conventional, you, I, us, me, them, etc. And then she moves into a more of an absolute way, and more of an open way, where there is the experience of compassion as a quality that is present. It's not my quality. It's not sent to another one. It's a phenomena of nature that is beautiful, helpful, can be cultivated. And so she says, you can use the sentences and send the wishes, or you can just allow the heart to abide in care. It's kind of not directed towards being, it's more open. So it's a way that I would say she plays with the relative, the conventional you, I, and the absolute, And I think I've talked also about it, but I can't remember just now. Oh yeah, maybe a little bit yesterday when I was in an exchange talking about body. And it might have sounded strange to you, or it might have made sense to you. So in a conventional way, we say, yeah, this is my body, you know, and there's this concept. We take many, many, many things and we gather them together and we call this the body. The body of, you know, the sensations of the past, the sensation that might come in the future, the one here, the ones in the toes, the ones in the ears, you know, and we make all this, we gather this together and we create what we call a convention. We say the body. So when I say my body, you know, it means the things that are felt or were felt or will be felt physically for this being here. And I was suggesting that also there's no body. We can let go of the concept, and what we find is a series of events happening. You know, sometimes there is hunger, and sometimes there is an experience of fullness, or I don't know what's the word in English. You know, but after eating a big meal, you know, and so these are events that we can, in a way, detach. I don't know if that's the right word here, but detach from one another and say these are events, and we can look at life with different lens, not just the lens of I, me, you, but the lens of, you know, we could, sometimes I talk about it using terms like ideas like human nature or nature. And we release in this way a little bit of the identification, me, mine, I. And yeah, and we can play with this. So we don't want to fall absolutely in one, be stuck in one or be stuck in the other. The way I understand wisdom and the Buddhist practice is that way that we can actually flow from one to the other. Joseph expressed this through the words of, was it I don't know who, Shantideva or somebody else, but anyway, the quote is something like, you know, my understanding of reality is as wide as the sky, my view is as wide and spacious as the sky, and my attention to details, my attention to wholesome and unwholesome, my attention to karma is as fine as a grain of barley flour. And so you see in this the expression of the absolute. My view is wide, and my attention to hurting or harming or non-harming is very, very minute and precise. Other expression we have heard of this is this other beautiful quote that you might have heard that could be, you know, describing the whole of the path in a way, is wisdom tells me I'm nothing, love tells me I'm everything, and between the two, my life flows, or life flows. From a very respected Indian sage. And yeah, and I wanted to bring this here today because I know that's the secret from behind the scenes. I know that this evening, and everything can change, of course, because this evening is so far away. But then the late part of the day, when Joseph comes back this afternoon, I think he wants to talk about anatta, or not self, that very essential teachings or view in Buddhist philosophy or psychology. And so I thought, you know, this morning we could look at this together. And again, I want to repeat this. I think it's very, the wisdom allows our heart and mind and to play with perception and move from one way to seeing the world to another, and how they can both inform each other so that we can live more fully. You know, Joseph was saying, and it's known in the teachings, that it's when you're caught in one reality, it's really painful. If I'm totally identified with my body, thoughts, emotions, everything that I've done in the past, every movements of mine, if all this is describing me, is me, I'm identified with this, it's very, very painful because I'm forever guilty of things I've done or even think, you know, and fear of death comes because I'm so identified, this is me. If this is me, this body and these thoughts, and thought stops and body stops, you know, and I'm totally identified, I haven't questioned that, I'm stuck in that conventional way of perceiving reality, it's very, very painful. And spiritual practice can help us open that vision, that view a bit. In the other way, as Joseph was mentioning yesterday, if we're stuck in the absolute, then, you know, it's not even possible for us to get back to our house because we don't know which one it is. You know, we were not able, Jack Kornfield says that, you do have to remember your postal code, you know. So we have to understand, you know, this is my street, this is my house, I did that, I said that, you know. And things like this are said, you know, and they have impact, either very positive or negative. And so, and if we're stuck in the absolute, you know, we'll need people to feed us and, you know, clean us so for me, some of the ways this is really applicable these days is, you know, we could say that in the absolute, in the rather absolute way, or in going in that direction, we could say we're all the same. We're all sensitive beings. We all fear, pain. We all want safety. We all want one well-being. So we're all equal. And we could, it's very beautiful, but we don't want to stay stuck there because we need to come back to conventional reality in order to notice that we're not treated equal in conventional reality, in agreed reality, or in, you know, agreed, maybe more agreed by the dominant group. You know, we're not treated equal. Yes, we are equal, but then when we look, we can see, you know, Friday evening, what happened in New Brunswick Friday evening. Yeah. Rodney Levy, an Indigenous man, was killed. The 8th Indigenous person killed in Canada in the last 3 months. It's important that our conventional reality, who we give value to, is informed by the absolute reality that we're able to touch in the universality of our experience, that we all fear death or pain, certainly, that we all want to contribute and be seen in the fullness of who we are, full living beings, family members, you know, people with creativity, with dreams. So we want to go in the absolute, to recognize and come back in the conventional, to notice, you know, what's not working. Friday evening in Atlanta, Raychard Brooks was killed by the police. Not everyone is treated the same in relative reality. It's important to notice this. And so wisdom is inviting me to play in both fields so that I can gain wisdom in one, and come back to actually create a reality where there's less suffering. And yes, we could think it's a police problem, and it is. But I was also in my Dharma practice last evening, taking time to mindfully, carefully read the thread of the black in the ivory hashtag on Twitter. That's highly recommended spiritual practice. Taking the time to read this thread of the experience of Black people in universities, doing PhDs, teaching, being undergraduate or graduates. I don't know all the language, I've never been to university. As a student, it's new to me, I teach there once in a while. But reading this thread was showing me that there's a lot to do in many areas of our lives so that wisdom can infuse conventional reality. So that's the field of exploration for us today, if you want, if it resonates with you. Conventional reality, absolute reality. And so the invitation at the moment of practice, the view that we're invited to take here as we sit, maybe in meditation, is an invitation to go a little bit towards the absolute, touch on this. Yeah, so there's the technique of meditation, but there's also the understanding, the view, something wider as we sit, you know? So there's the technique of how to sit and where to put the attention, but there's the understanding behind it that is extremely important. And the understanding here that we could play with would be at the moment of practicing, as we closed our eyes, if we do, and as we feel either the breath or the mind state that is there, whatever it is, it could be a difficult one or a beautiful mind state. They tend to come at different moments depending on the circumstances. The way to encounter the breath or the sensations of cold or warmth or the sounds or the silence or the ache in the heart or the love in there, the way to encounter them that could be very wise at the moment of meditation is to recognize these as natural phenomena. So not so much about moi, about me, about I, not so much mine, but in a way, an entry way in the whole of humanity. So what I get to experience as I'm practicing is of the public domain. I might habitually perceive it as about me. I'm agitated, I'm so quiet. But quietness, agitation, is part of nature, part of human nature. And so as we sit here and practice, we are welcomed back in the fullness of the humanity. And that can be extremely healing, to let go of that vision of it's about me, my thoughts, and my unpleasantness, or the unpleasantness that I feel. And a way to do this is through kind of noting that also Joseph talked about, that is can be extremely skillful, or see for yourself if it is. But by removing the I from the thought process, just as an exploration, and see what could happen. So instead of I'm hearing the kids playing in the street, it could be hearing is happening. Hearing is happening. Oh, contraction in the chest or the belly. Oh, despair is present. Joy is alive. Do you see? I do this, I remove the I from the description of what's happening. And so it's a kind of noting a little longer than just one word, but it suggests that consciousness is not maybe I am hearing, but hearing happens. It's a very natural thing. And we see if we remove the I from the sentence or from the experience, if the whole of the experience doesn't remain full, coolness is felt in the toes. It's not I'm cold, but what if it was coolness happening? Very Buddhist way to approach practice here, very wise. And then after we can go back, or we can play with this a little bit. Ways that the Buddha, so many ways that the Buddha talked about this. But one of the ways around the physicality, the materiality, what we call maybe body, is to use the kind of exploration of the four elements, saying, you know, this body is earth element. Not so much yours. Inside, outside, the earth element is the earth element. And it's felt now. There's a weight to it, or hardness to it. And in this body, also it could be viewed or perceived through the element of air, the space in the chest, or the hands as a field of tingling or sensation. Not so much I. The Buddha would say things like this: the air element, inside, outside, the same, no difference. The water element, inside, outside, the same. Water element, simply. And he would say, wise people recognize this. Unwise people, they might recognize this, but they go a little further. They identify. They take it as mine, my earth element, my water element. In this body now, there's a play of heat, the digestive heat, changing the breakfast food into energy for practice. This heat is not mine, or maybe it could be considered as not mine, but just nature happening. And in this way, it can go so far as to maybe remove completely the fear of death. When one understands that one is nature through air movement, water movement, earth movement, fire. And the same with the, inner qualities of the public domain. You don't have, authorship or whatever the word would be around, greed or confusion or fear or shame or joy or generosity. This doesn't belong to a certain I that we made up. These are things that do happen in the universe. And we could go as far as questioning consciousness, what experiences coolness and itch and ache and confusion and joy, what we call often the observer. Maybe this is just an element of nature, the knowing element. Maybe if we were to remove some of the tendencies and patterning that we call personality, if there was just the knowing, maybe we would discover that the knowing in you and the knowing in me is just this capacity to experience, to reveal. ease or dis-ease or comfort or care or clarity or just a knowing. And so this morning I'd like to invite us to play a little bit with this. And this is very subtle teachings, so we can't, come in there with our big, demands and expectations, and, we can't come in forcing things. To do this exploration, we need the right conditions. We need some calm. We need some spirit of exploration, maybe some joy. We need some, curiosity, certainly. A lot of stability for sure. If we're caught in our preferences and opinions and there's not enough space, all this, we're under siege, we're preoccupied. And there's a lot of selfing in this. I want this, I want that, I don't understand. We are invited in this third day here to go in maybe a little bit more of a subtle field of perception. Not easy. Maybe circumstances are not the right ones today. No blaming anybody. But, could be good to actually go in these waters and see what's there. So I invite you to find the posture that is right for you to stay awake and have ease, some ease in the mind and wakefulness, some quietness. And sometimes the mind, has either rigidity to it or is perturbed in some way. So there's not much we're going to be able to do. Maybe just bring so much compassion, self-compassion, care for this broken or contracted heart. This will be the appropriate practice. Sometimes the mind is, under attack, visited by afflictive emotions. Sometimes the mind is rigid, But sometimes the mind has some space to it, some quietness to it, some availability, I would say, to it. And we can suggest, invite, tend towards. And the mind can respond, the heart can respond somewhat. And so inviting, and see if it's possible to invite quietness in here. And I'm thinking here of things I've heard from Dault and Ross, one of our teachers, dear teachers here at the True North Insight. And I think she might have heard it from her teachers. But I've certainly heard her talk about the 3 S in practice. The silence that we bring in the room. The stillness that we bring in the body. The relative stillness of a living body. Silence inside and outside. The stillness inside and outside. And the space, maybe, outside of us, aware of the space around us. And also the space in the heart, mind, the psyche, the field of consciousness, so vast. The inner world, so vast, spacious. Ajahn Sumedho says there's space in the heart and the mind. So much space for armies to come by, pass by, space enough for butterflies, rain clouds, or nothing. So as we sit here in stillness and silence and space, let's see if we don't make I or mine the phenomena that are alive or appear. If we don't take ownership, don't appropriate, don't define ourselves or identify with these phenomena, what happens if we allow warmth to be there, and in a way freeing warmth from any kind of appropriation, giving back warmth or coolness to the universe. Allowing tingling to happen as a natural phenomena. Liberating the breath from ownership or identification. Allowing the breath to happen as it does, naturally. Allowing the heart to feel what it feels, as it does naturally. There might be joy in there, or quietness, or confusion. All these natural events of the mind. Can it be okay? That's what's there right now. And what if thoughts were not exactly me, but just being born out of conditions? Out of habit. Being born from agitation, or born from fear, or born from care. See if there can be some buoyancy of heart, some lightness of heart gained in not defining, identifying, or grasping, clinging to phenomena as I or mine. Even what seems serious or sticky or heavy might have a little bit more ephemerality to it, a little bit more lightness, moods, ephemeral, passing. Mirage-like. Appearances, how things appear right now. Appearing and disappearing. Allowing breath to happen freely, allowing sounds to be heard, allowing images maybe to flash by, impressions. If you want to play with the noting, you can. Your own way, noticing what's happening, hearing is happening. Agitation is present. Calm is alive. Wave of impatience or confusion, or space of clarity and ease. Body comfortable, uncomfortable, whatever is there. knowing is happening. Sensitivity is happening in the skin, the ear door, in the heart, mind. There's sensitivity to what is pleasurable or unpleasant, to what is beautiful or not. Sensitivity, nothing personal, human nature. Notice the quality of this mind. No judgments here, just factual. We just want to discover how it is in there. Maybe this mind has a lot to say. Maybe it's scattered. Or maybe it's gathered. Maybe it's quiet. No judgments. Nothing personal here. The Buddha is instructing us, inviting us to become aware. When the mind is scattered, know the mind is scattered. When the mind is gathered, just knowing this mind is gathered. Just a waking up. Moments of consciousness. If things appear very personal right now, happening to me, no doubt, to moi, in me, mine, no worry. We can just become aware of this. Oh, it appears like this right now, so clearly like this. It appears like this, that it's me meditating. So we can just become aware of this. It's good to get acquainted with our worldview. Maybe you want to become aware of the earth element right here. Pressure, weight, hardness. This body, earth, sitting on earth, resting on earth. Just this earth, lump of earth, resting on earth. Becoming aware of the air element as the belly rises and falls, as the lungs expand and contract. Air element in the lungs, in the nostrils. Or if we think in terms of atoms, so much space, the body made mostly of space. Maybe we can perceive this in some ways. The space in the feet, or the chest, or the head, and the belly. Space, inside, outside, no difference. Same. Space, air. And the water element, creating the experience of fluidity when it's there, as maybe the belly rises. It doesn't crack and break. There's the water element creating cohesion, hydrated skin. Maybe we can feel the water element around the eyes or in the eyes. The fluid that makes possible the slight movements in the eyes. Saliva, blood. The water element inside, outside, the same. The fire element, temperature, coolness, warmth. Sometimes so much fire inside, in the body and the heart. Sometimes so much fire outside in the world. Sometimes no fire anymore, just coldness inside, outside. The whole planet covered with ice. Or the coldness between each other. Same thing in the body, cold. In the body, in the heart, coldness. The play of the elements. The Buddha inviting our attention to be like the wind, touching everything it encounters. Not just this or that, as the wind blows equally on all things. Let's allow our minds, our attention to meet, touch every experience equally. As the earth holds equally anything that is put on it, the Buddha is inviting us, inviting our minds to be like earth, holding, caring, for everything that is put on it, in it. as the water surrounds anything that it meets. Let's have our caring attention also meet everything that comes with care. Let the fire of our attention change into combustible, everything that is met. And notice how hearing happens spontaneously by itself. The ringing of the bell, no need for I to go get a bell. Let the appearance, the knowing happen naturally by itself. Bell, ringing, being known naturally. And as the eyes may be open, notice how there's no need for I to go get sights. There's a knowing that happens naturally when the conditions are gathered for seeing to happen. Very natural. Colors are known, forms are known, even the meaning making happens naturally. We don't have to create the meaning of plant or door or window. It's just very natural. There's no I that makes the sense of the world. Sense is made. It's conditioned. Just happens by itself. Colors are known, shapes, forms. And so it's a little strange that we would call it I and cling to it in such a defensive way, you know? When knowing happens by itself, naming or recognizing, perception happens by itself. Okay, this is very subtle stuff. So if you're triggered, confused, in a way I'm sorry, but in a way I'm okay with it. Because we're questioning, deep stuff, basic stuff, core stuff. World views, the way we understand or make the world, create the world. We think it's exactly like this, but there's me and I'm separate from everybody else. Maybe it's a little misunderstanding of perception, or maybe other perceptions could be welcomed. That's maybe what we call spiritual practice. And so maybe after this, later you practice this morning, you'll probably commit to sitting on your own in a way. Or I'll come back, yeah, I'll pick up on Roxanne's useful, wise idea yesterday. So what I'll do is I'll come back. We have still a number of minutes, but I'll say it now because I think about it. I'll come back at maybe from 11:45 to 11:45 to 12:15 for a half-hour sit. I'll just sit here and turn on my camera. If you want to, benefit from, get a ride, benefit from, if it's hard for you to do it on your own and you want to benefit from somebody else's presence, I'll be here, and probably others. A number of you came back yesterday when Roxanne offered it. So I'll come back and turn on my camera. You'll commit to sit, maybe. That would be useful for yourself in this retreat at this time or another time. Maybe commit to doing some exploring, some walking, meditation. And maybe I'll talk about one sutta just for a few minutes. And maybe after you'll want to go and read it, or maybe take a note and read it later, tonight or tomorrow, this week, to further your kind of study or reflections around this. And I won't name the sutta just right away because I don't want you to get on the internet and look for it. I want you to listen to more with full presence also, So this sutta, it's, you might have heard of it in some ways, not as a sutta, maybe the teaching itself, because for me, it's been very central in my practice, and also in my teaching. I pretty much bring it on every retreat. And so the Buddha, to highlight the different aspects of our experience, and to, in a way, to help us deconstruct that vision of I, it's me, it's about me, a kind of undifferentiated general sense of I. He used actually many, many ways to deconstruct, break down that view. So, because he was really well aware of the suffering that was coming with that unique view that we would cling to, could easily cling to. It's all about me. It's happening to me. And so he compared the experience of the body to foam, to the foam that we see at the side of the ocean, maybe that changes form with every wave. And in this very powerful way, I think he was talking to us about the ephemeral nature of the bodily experience, and also of the naturalness of this. Foam is not separate from sea, air, earth. It belongs to nature. And so body that we have kind of isolated as a thing, but what we call body, we just have to be bitten by a mosquito to notice that it's a highly relational thing. It belongs to nature. Nature picks at it. If you encounter, sometimes the Buddha would talk about the body and he would say, the body form. I mean, the word form is more used in English and Buddhist psychology. Form is what is touched by mosquitoes, what is touched by snakes. Just so you recognize the physicality. And he uses the foam image so that we can come closer to an understanding that what we call the body is not one thing, one solid, permanent thing. It's a flow, it's a river of experiences, always changing, light, heavy, contracted, expansive, it's something constantly alive, constantly naturally alive, and so he uses the elements, as I played a little bit, maybe, in the best way that I could this morning, to actually break down the idea of isolation and eyeing and mying and solidity. So he puts it in the context of the four elements. He puts the body in the context of the stages of death, of the corpse, decaying, inviting us to really consider the body. Now it's alive and brownish, pinkish, goldenish, or whatever, And later it'll be more white, or maybe green, or bloated, And then it will open, and flies and worms are gonna come and eat it. And it's true. This is factual about the ephemerality of the experience now, and it's very natural. And maybe it could be for you or not a wise thing to consider. We don't want to traumatize ourselves, but certainly familiarize, sensitize, or bring more consciousness to the ephemerality. So the foam image is used for body. For our experiences of pleasure and displeasure, the Buddha used the image of, and he's a really good storyteller. You'll see in the sutta when you go read it. He uses the image of bubbles at the surface of a little pond when it rains, big drops of water in July and summer. When the drops fall, they create little bubbles that last only a moment. And he's inviting us in awareness to become really sensitive, aware that the experiences of pleasure and displeasure are so changing. You might like this retreat, and then whoops, you don't like it anymore. And you might, the field of sound is lovely, and then Pascal speaks again, and that bubble is, bursts. The quietness and the silence is gone, And the play of the pleasure in our life, how unreliable, unstable it is, And he uses the image of the mirage to talk about our perceptions of self, of others, how it might not be exactly reality what we perceive, but it might be veiled by history, education, culture. And this is so much at play right now with the killing of certain human beings by police and the protecting of others. Definitely a play of perception. Some beings are seen to have value in the dominant culture, and some beings not. And so the Buddha talks about mirage, how we see beings, and it might not be what we see, it might be what we project on them, that they're worthy or scary or, And so the Buddha talks about the mirage of perception for us to notice the ephemeral nature of them and the fact that it's not maybe reality. And so when we perceive everything through this perception of I, mine, me, my thoughts, my body, maybe there's other ways to perceive what's happening that would, open the heart, that would release the heart from fear, from isolation, And then in this sutta, he compares our thoughts and emotions to the trunk of a banana tree. And read the story, it's so Again, very good storyteller, telling the story of somebody who goes in the woods to find hardwood and find a banana tree, thinking really good, hard, solid wood in there, to find nothing. So imagine yourself looking for hardwood to build something. You know, maybe you want to build some case to grow your vegetables, and you need solid wood for your casing. You look around in your neighborhood for good hardwood, and you find a banana tree. And you cut it down and you find there's nothing in it. No I, no self, no inherent self in it, just constructions, painful ones, beautiful ones, ones that will have beneficial impact on the world. And so it compares our thoughts and emotions to the empty trunk of a banana tree. And when we make so personal my emotions and my thoughts and we're stuck, identified with our emotions. And maybe there's some wisdom, some capacity in time through, practicing meditation to notice that, they appear and disappear, like the banana tree, big production of bananas and flowers and leaves, and then falls to the ground. Maybe we can release the appropriation, the identification, and allow these to move through, maybe benefiting from some of the beautiful quality that arise, not defining ourselves by them. The last image he uses in the Phena Sutta, Phena, Phena Sutta. Oh, the numbers are going down. You can find it on Access to Insight. Maybe we'll put the link in the thread of the conversation. I can see it's already there, is it? No. Okay. So in the last image is the image of the magic show. And it's around consciousness, what is witnessing, what is observing that we take to be so personal. Such an interesting perception or conception of reality. Is it absolutely so? The Buddha suggests that it's a magic show. It appears like this. It appears like it's me who is experiencing the world. But maybe it's been conceived, it's been produced, like production like this, like a magician makes something appear a certain way. And in the practice, maybe we might go and question this. Actually, that's what we call Dhamma Vichaya when we refer to this word of investigation. Somebody was asking the question, René, yesterday. You talk about this investigation. So the Dhamma Vichaya that we translate often by investigation, if I translate it otherwise, I break it down a bit. Dhamma with a small d in Pali means phenomena. And Vichaya would be the aspect of investigation. So it's investigation of phenomena. And so it's telling to me, at least, that at the moment of practicing, the investigation is not, thinking about stuff and analyzing and, asking a lot of questions and making hypotheses. And, it's not conceptual so much, or certainly not so discursive. Investigation of phenomena might mean, we could use this for our practice today, it might mean what I was saying earlier. It might be talking a lot about the view. It might be saying, when you sit, honey, when you sit on the cushion, on the cush, it's not about you. It's about phenomena, human phenomena. Dhamma Vichaya, investigating with a quiet, alert mind, reality, not as me, I, but as nature, human nature. I don't know if you can follow me here. So as I sit, it's not about me and I'm so agitated or I'm so good at meditation. It's not like this. It's a study of the human heart, of the relationship humans have with the different phenomena that appear, emotions, thoughts, circumstances, relations. So I sit here and I'm discovering the phenomena of cold or warmth or breath or the phenomena of hearing. That's what is meant by Dhamma Vichaya. The investigation is, I'll use that word, it's not perfect, but it might point to something. The investigation in a way is passive, like a biologist going in nature. They don't mess around with the beavers. They just hide in the bush and they let the wisdom arise from contact with reality. And so at the beginning, it's like, why? There's no beavers around here. And then when the night comes, oh, they come out at night. It's just the presence, the sustained presence that reveals reality. And suddenly you're like, oh, the little beavers, they're fighting. And you stay a little longer aware. You shut up, don't mess around, don't go tell them what they should do. You just stay there in the bush. And at some point, you know, oh, they're playing. They're learning how to, what is a big chunk and what is a light chunk, you know, by biting each other. I'm not a biologist, I'm making this up. But what I want to emphasize the attention on is the presence, the quality of silent presence that reveals the nature of things. So I don't go in there and like, hey, Pascal, it's not about you anymore. You know, I just humbly sit there and notice, oh, it keeps appearing as me, my thoughts. And at some point, whoops, there's a thought that just came by. It's not exactly me. It just landed there, you know. It followed on a sound, you know. It said, oh, I wonder what kind of bird. It was not me saying this. It was just out of circumstances. It's not so personal. Or I want to be silent, but it keeps talking in there. Oh, it's not so much me. It's pattern in energies, or etc. So I just stay attentive. So many beautiful, powerful images in these teachings. Ajahn Chah says, you know, you sit as if you were going in the forest near a very quiet lake and you sat on a rock there and didn't move and stayed attentive. At some point, if you don't move, stay attentive, all kinds of strange animals are going to come to, you know, drink at the lake. You'll see all kinds of strange animals, beautiful ones, small ones. Some will come very quickly and leave, some will stay around. If you don't move and stay attentive, the whole of the Dhamma will be revealed. And so that's why we become quiet and awake, aware, sensitive, and things will reveal themselves. This is Dhamma Vichaya, this is investigation. Okay. And so this investigation can be done through movement, in walking for a few feet, maybe at a slower pace than normal, just walking a few feet and discovering how a being can hold their experience, sometimes in boredom, agitation, sometimes as Ruby was describing yesterday, with a lot of desire to be somebody else, somewhere else, experiencing something else, you know. And we stay with this. We don't give into the desire. We stay with this. Sometimes it needs so much courage and it creates confusion, you know, and we stay and we get acquainted with that strange animal called either becoming or desire, the wanting to be somebody else, somewhere else, to not be this one here. And when we stay with this and we learn how to be with this instead of, giving in, we learn to accompany with compassion, with care, a being that is perturbed by strong desire. Okay? So we can do this in movement, and we can do this in stillness as we sit or lay down to practice or stand. And then there'll be a meal at some point, maybe the reading of the sutta if it's something you want to do. Or maybe there'll be a meal before we gather with Roxanne again. And so there's a practice around mindful eating, maybe mindful meal preparing, maybe slowing down for a couple of bites at least, being not habitual. That would be the goal on retreat, in a way, to not do anything habitually, but doing things consciously. It might seem pointless right there. Why would I bite in my sandwich mindfully? Well, because I'm practicing being really attentive. It's going to be helpful as a citizen in society to be able to tune into what's happening. It's going to be very useful to being a member of a family, to actually be able to tune into what's happening. There's a lot of information in reality that we miss in our preconceived ideas. So we want to see through the veil, through the mirage. And so practicing mindful eating is a noble thing to do. Okay, so somebody's asking, I think, about the Twitter account. I think the hashtag is Black in the Ivory. And the Fena Sutta is right there at your fingertips, coming from 2,600 years ago, just there at your fingertips. Okay, thank you so much for your care and attention and for holding this retreat. We are, when we don't see each other, but we know that we're practicing, it's tremendously powerful to know that others are doing this hard work too. So we do it for each other. And I'll be here at 11:45. Thank you.
Pascal?
Oui, Muriel?
Est-ce que tu veux que je parle?
Oh, God, sorry. Muriel had a few things to say to us. Maybe we'll do it later. I see a lot of people have gone. Maybe we'll find another time to do it.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you. I'm so sorry.